but we wanted to get into the Commanders' quarterback situation. All right, we talked a little bit about this on Monday. Most of the fans here in D.C. are in Sam Howell's corner, and I understand why. There's been Drek here at quarterback. There's been constant change at the position, and Howell has definitely flashed at times. He's coming off a really bad game. But all of a sudden, you look at where the team is in terms of draft position, and one would anticipate
they're pretty high.
One would anticipate it's actually going to get better because when you look at the schedule, you're hard-pressed to find a win. When you lose to the Giants and Tommy DeVito,
yeah.
I mean, you could go winless the rest of the way.
You should probably expect to go winless.
So
or maybe eke out one win throughout the rest of the remaining schedule.
So whereas a week ago, you were looking at the Commanders, and I think they were projected to have the 10th pick in the draft. Now, all of a sudden, they have the 7th pick in the draft, and it may improve to having a top 3 pick. Who knows? And everybody knows that in college football, the top prospects, and things could change with the combine and the way the season closes. There are a couple quarterbacks in Caleb Williams and Drake May who are highly regarded. There are others like Bo Nix, maybe Shedeur Sanders, who are potential first-round picks. So there are going to be a lot of guys who are going to be drafted, as many as 5 or 6 guys drafted in the first round, but the Commanders are going to have a top pick. So we're going to put this up as the Junkies poll of the day after we play this clip from Jay Gruden. But the question we want to throw out to our callers, and you can chime in at 800-636-1067 on the MGM National Harbor Lister lines, is if you have one of these top picks and you can take one of these top quarterbacks, do you take them? Here's what Jay Gruden said when asked about drafting a quarterback early in round 1.
Yeah, you have to, unfortunately. I think Sam's done a lot of great things, and if they don't get a quarterback in the first round, I think Sam has shown promise, and his development is pretty much on par with what a young quarterback needs to do. But if you have a chance to get a guy that you feel like is a game changer, a franchise changer, then you got to take him. You know, you're always looking to upgrade your quarterback spot. I mean, what Andy Reid did when they had Alex Smith and going out and trading up and getting Patrick Mahomes changed the whole course of their franchise. You know, nothing against Alex Smith, but they had a chance to get a guy that they thought was a hell of a player and a guy that's going to be there for a long, long time, and it worked out perfectly for him. So it doesn't always work out like that. If it doesn't work out and Sam's still your guy, then so be it. But if you see a guy and you think he's going to be that guy that can lead your team for 20 years or 15 years, then yeah, you got to take him.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with Jay Gruden. I mean, he's been a head coach in the league. He's been an offensive coordinator in the league. He knows what playoff caliber quarterbacking looks like. He knows what you need to not just make the playoffs, but to go deep in the playoffs and give your team a chance to win a Super Bowl. And if the brass here, whoever they bring in to be the GM after Ron is gone, doesn't think that Sam is that guy, that he has that sort of upside, then you at least have to consider picking a quarterback in the top 5 or top 10, wherever you might wind up drafting.
So I put this up as the Junkies poll of the day presented by Van Meter Homes. You can vote at Junks Radio. But we had a poll about Sam Howell on Monday. I'm trying to see the results on Monday. And it gave you 3 choices. And the question was, are you convinced that Sam Howell's the guy in 2024? I told you I'm on the fence. I think he's proven that he can be a starter in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're an NFL franchise with the goal of winning a Super Bowl, you don't want just a guy, right? Like, I think Baker Mayfield is a starter in the league.
Yeah.
You couldn't argue that he isn't a starter. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to argue that he's a starter that could probably win you a Super Bowl. You'd probably have to have perfect things around you. Like, he's okay.
He's the perfect.
He's good.
He's a bridge quarterback.
Right.
He is a perfect guy for a team if you have playoff aspirations that can maybe get you there or keep you afloat while you're looking for the next guy.
Your guy Kirk Cousins puts up way better stats than Baker Mayfield, but the knock against Kirk is he's not getting it done in the playoffs. So I could say that Sam Howell, I can project him, and who knows, as maybe one of those guys that's a capable starter in the league, but maybe it's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the chance to get somebody, and it's unproven, we've talked about this, Look at the difference between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud this year, and maybe that'll change down the road, but you could potentially take a swing, and they have taken swings on high draft picks like they did with RG3, and you can miss. But I think you have to take that swing. 800-636-1067. If they have a top 5 pick, now, it could be a situation where Caleb Williams and Drake May go 1-2. But if you got a shot at one of those guys, I think you have to take them.
Yeah, the latest
The one that I don't know, and I think he's projected to be a top 10 pick, I've only seen him play like a half of football. All right? And that's Bo Nix.
Okay.
Bo Nix puts up bomb numbers for Oregon. I have him on my college fantasy team. The game that I watched, it was a lot of really easy passes, guys wide open, bubble screens, short passes, yards after the catch. And that's a tricky thing in college football. A lot of times you see these quarterbacks, and that happens. I feel like, Drab, do you have a good file on Bo Nix?
Yeah, I mean,
does he throw, like the game that I said, like I said, I've only watched him for like a half. All of the throws, and he put up numbers, were just like really easy yards after the catch, throws to backs, short wide. Does he have
sometimes
the ability to throw like those tight window, back shoulder type throws?
Yeah, but I mean, there's still some question marks because he was not very good his first couple of years. He's gotten a lot better, but he's got really good presence in the pocket. He's got good fundamentals, good mobility. But the thing is with a lot of these quarterbacks is that they're going to be late risers. You have Jaden Daniels, who's getting a lot of run now. Like, is he a pro-style quarterback? You got the kid from Georgia, Carson Beck, who's playing out of his mind the last
J.J.
few.
McCarthy's.
You got McCarthy, who's a lot of people are tantalized by. You obviously have Penix, and then the top two. So you don't really know how many of these guys are going to stay up there. They could have a Sam Howell-like fall still, or Will Levis. But, I like Bo Nix. I don't know if I would draft him in the top 10, but someone might.
I mean, the latest mock I'm seeing from Walter Football doesn't even have Nix in the first round unless I'm missing him.
Yeah, but then the 33rd team put out their mock draft the other day.
10.
They had him at 5 to the
Oh,
Giants.
5.
So they're all over the place with these quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, but if Sam Howell ends the year with, I don't know, he's going to have 27, 29, maybe 30 passing touchdowns, he's going to be hard to move on from, especially because you've got the unicorn. You possibly have it in your hands. You have the young quarterback that shows promise that's on a rookie deal. That gives you so much financial flexibility for the rest of your roster. If you're sold on him, if you think he's the guy going forward.
But you'd also have the other guy on a rookie deal too.
Okay, but like that rookie deal is going to be $5 or $6 million a year. Like Howell's is like $800K.
Okay, but in the grand scheme of franchise quarterbacks, with some of them making $30-40 million, it's nothing. All I'm saying is, yeah, it depends on it. Look, it's going to depend really on who the GM is,
right,
and the staff and their assessment of Sam Howell. Because as I said on Monday, and what you're just saying is, you do have the advantage of you're paying this guy pennies,
right? And
the only thing I'll say about it, you tend to bring up those raw numbers, and I agree. He's going to have all these touchdowns, and he's had really good moments. He's also passed the ball more than anybody else in the league.
But
so if you looked at the percentage of touchdowns per throw, he's not going to be number one. And then, people love to tout that he's leading the league in yards. Well, he's also leading the league in interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
He's leading the league in sacks. And I understand they don't have a great offensive line, but those are things that you have to consider.
But so the GM is going to
Can you just absolve a guy? Drab, can you absolve the guy for leading the league in sacks and interceptions?
Well, you're not going to put all the sacks squarely on Sam Howell. And that's where the GM comes in. He's going to say, well, Sam Howell, if he has 2 more premier offensive linemen protecting him, his sack number is going to go down. His interception numbers should go down as a result of that by surrounding him with better talent. So that's the huge decision that the next GM is going to have to make. Whether you spend a top 10 pick on a quarterback if you're not sold on Howell, or if you're sold on Howell and bring in a veteran or keep Brissett here to back him up in 2024 and go forward with him if you feel like you've got enough raw material with him to stick with him and dedicate your team to him.
I'll say this about the interceptions. I'd much rather have Howell, the way Howell plays, and getting a lot of yards and pass attempts, but also a lot of interceptions and sacks, than I would Kenny Pickett, who doesn't move the ball but doesn't throw interceptions.
Right.
So, of course, you would rather have Hal and take his flaws than a bum like Pickett.
Yeah.
I just still think that there's a lot of football left for Hal.
I'll take Hal throwing 30 touchdowns if he has 17 picks and he's dancing with 4,500 passing yards.
Yeah, and
I'll take that bad.
I feel like we're in crazy town right now. You wouldn't take Kenny Pickett's record. I know you don't like to attribute record to quarterback, but you think Commanders fans wouldn't swap Kenny Pickett's record for Sam Howell?
Well, they would swap the record, but they wouldn't swap the player. They wouldn't take Kenny Pickett right now for Sam Howell. I guarantee you that. You want to do that poll? You want to ask the listeners?
And
would they rather have Kenny Pickett?
I think Mike Tomlin would rather have Sam Howell.
Oh, lock.
I believe Kenny Pickett is the favorite to be the next quarterback benched. I got an email last night.
I mean, look, I was impressed with Kenny Pickett last year. The guy's got 6 touchdowns this season.
Right.
6.
Also,
but like I said, Gruden said something about that offense because he was defending Canada, as we're playing a Jay Gruden clip, and we'll take your calls here at 800-636-1067. And he said, well, what do you expect from an offense when you have 2 bad tackles, receivers that can't block, that are too small? So I think it's a flawed offense, but Kenny Pickett certainly hasn't helped the situation. And there's been enough time that you would think that the guy would throw more than 6 touchdowns in that amount of games. So, yeah, Sam Howell, if you have a shot at Caleb or Drake, if all of the experts, and I don't watch that much college football, but if all of the experts say that these guys are can't-miss guys, I think you have to take that swing. I think you have to take that swing, and because I don't know that Sam's looked impressive at times, but do you think he has the upside? Like, I think it's pretty apparent C.J. Stroud is going to be an elite quarterback in the league.
Well, some would argue he's already there as a rookie.
Right. And maybe Sam Howell could be that. I don't know. Like, the difference between C.J. Stroud and Sam Howell right now, passer rating, it's 99 to 88. QBR, it is 61 to 49.
Yeah, I think
and touchdown interception ratio, Sam's 18 to 12, CJ Stroud is 17 to 5. So the Howell backers would say, well, he's only had 12 starts. He can develop. He can become one of those better guys in the league. I don't know that. We had Mike Jones on the show who says he talks to NFL executives, and most of them say, well, this is what Howell is. He's going to be up and down, up and down.
Right.
And he, by the way, he was getting attacked on social media. The Howell hive is strong here.
The Howlers are out in force.
Yes.
And you can tell from the tone of Mike Jones's Twitter that he had just had enough.
Yes.
He had enough.
You saw the same tweet I saw.
Enough of the Howlers. They pushed Mike Jones to his breaking point.
I've never seen a fan base simp for a quarterback as much as this one.
And again, it just goes back to the fact that it's been such a revolving door of bad quarterback play here outside of Kirk Cousins over the last 20-plus years.
To be honest, I think there's a little bit of desperate, like they want someone, they're so desperate for someone to be the guy that they're willing to simp so hard for him.
They're willing to elevate somebody who
exactly.
might not be the guy.
They're willing to crown someone maybe a little prematurely.
Now,
They wanted to do that with Heineke because there was some of it with Heineke, but it's only gotten stronger with Howell.
I am a well-documented quarterback round you were selected in snob that's been documented over the years. But if I'm a GM coming in and Sam Howell strings together more good games than bad games, I might be willing to just roll with him as my guy coming in as the new GM. As long as I can draft an offensive lineman or two and just surround him and make him comfortable, like behind the offensive line that he's playing behind, I think I'd be okay with that plan.
I wouldn't hate it. Like I said, I'm on the fence.
Because I'm not going to just risk it on – I'm not going to risk Sam Howell for Bo Nix or like a flash in the pan potentially in Jaden Daniels. Somebody I don't – like if it's May or Caleb Williams, those guys I would probably do it for.
But odds are one of those guys will bust. The odds.
Right. So
if you're just playing the odds.
That's why it makes it dicey.
Yep. 800-636-1067. We'll push the parlay till a little bit later in the show. We'll come back, take your calls. You heard what Jay Gruden had to say. The Commanders are going to have an early round pick. Should a quarterback be considered? We'll take your calls next here on the Junkies. All right, early voting is 72% say no, do not draft a quarterback. Sam Howell has a lot of backers here. Let's go to the phones. Andres in Manassas on line 1. What's up, Dre? You're on with the Junkies.
JP, it's funny how you dropped off the Sam Howell bandwagon so quickly, especially since you're the first junkie to spot him and see him and realize he was the one. But, I would say this. It's funny how some people, when they talk about Sam Howell in terms of his touchdowns, they bring up this how many times he's dropped back stat. But then in the same breath, they go and talk about his sacks and his turnovers, but they don't bring up that same, but how many times he dropped back stats. So
that's true.
It'd be interesting to see how, if his numbers will actually decrease because how many times he's dropped back.
Well, I think what you could say contextually, Andre, is, and we went through this on Monday, if you trust some of the analytics, right? And I picked 3 the other day. Pro Football Focus's grade, QBR, which is ESPN's version, and then the traditional passer rating. Right now, Howell this season finishes right around 20, plus or minus 2, but he finishes right around the 20th ranked quarterback.
Yep, and how many of these quarterbacks? How many of these quarterbacks didn't play an entire season because there's so many injuries? Mm-hmm. I'll say this, and I'll preface this by saying a lot of ifs. If we still had Trent Williams on the line, if we had a good offensive line, then I'll probably say patience, look at another, quarterback. But as bad as our offensive line has been, if Sam Howell continues on this trajectory where he'll be a top 20 quarterback, if that Notre Dame lineman who's 6'8", whatever, is still there, then I say you have to go for the offensive lineman. I mean, I just think if you were to – I mean, look at Carolina. They spent everything to get, their quarterback.
Yeah, Bryce Young.
Yeah, Bryce Young, and it's not working out. I mean, I understand the lure. I mean, by all means, Gruden has lost more about football than I know, but he's on his couch at home. He didn't make it in the league. So, I mean, I got to believe there's just too much emphasis in the court. I understand why, but without a good, team, a good a first-round quarterback means, diddly poo, man.
All right, yeah. The way I would look at it is if Sam Howell has a top 20-ish type season in his first real campaign starting games, I'm going to feel like his arrow's pointing up and that he could be a top 12 to top 14 quarterback in his second full season.
Maybe. But I bring up Baker Mayfield.
That's what I'm going to guess is going to happen.
Didn't Baker Mayfield have a really good rookie season?
He did.
And then he kind of fell off.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a bounce back in year 3.
Right.
And then he's been kind of what he is. So I don't think it's a guarantee.
No,
the progress isn't always linear.
I'm not guaranteeing it's happening, but especially for a franchise that has been searching so long for a difference-making quarterback, like if you even have the promise of it, which I think you're seeing now with Sam Howell, that he could develop into that, it's hard to just punt it away after one season and press the reset button.
He's talking about Joe Alt, the offensive tackle at Notre Dame. All right, let's go to Paul in D.C., line 2. Paul, you're on with the Junkies. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, fellas.
Thank you, sir.
I'm like this, man. I don't understand the Howell haters. I don't know who the gentleman is that was comparing him to C.J. Stroud, because at the end of the day, he's only played 12 games, okay? And when you compare him to C.J. Stroud, I think that's unfair because just like the previous caller said, what about Bryce Young, Kenny Pickett, Malik Gillis, Will Levis? Compare him to all these other guys who went high and ain't doing nothing, right? So, and in the context of whenever they want to nitpick, they say, oh, well, he threw for, he's leading the league in yards and passing, but he's also dropping back. That's not his fault. You got 3 good running backs on this team, and Robinson, Gibson, and the guy
Rodriguez,
and they choose to throw the ball as much as they do. You need a left tackle and a right tackle. So if you want to go out there in the draft, don't get another quarterback. Get 2 tackles, okay? And then evaluate how from that perspective. But the young man here's what I listened to. Herb Bieniemy say he works hard, he wants to be great, and he learns from his mistakes. Those 3 interceptions, one of them was his. He tried to throw it away, and the guy just made a hell of a play at the end of the game. Let's be real. He was trying to throw the ball away.
You don't think the first one, the deep ball, wasn't his?
The first one was on his. I said the first one was his.
Okay, but not the third one where he's trying to throw it about? I mean, okay.
He was trying to throw, yeah, but listen to this, though.
What about the second one where he's rolling out and under threw a deep ball?
Okay, but here's what I'm grading him on. He took a lot of sacks in the beginning. He learned from his mistakes, and he kind of decreased that. He threw a lot of interceptions in the beginning, and now he's learning from that. The guy learns. I'm looking at the eye test. Bump them analytics. All those young guys, these nerds making money off of these analytics and stuff. They ain't never played the game, okay, never coached the game. And for those of us who have played and coached and been around sports, we understand that it's also an eye test factor in the situation.
Maybe that's fair. That's
Thank you for
fair.
the call. Look, I'm willing to roll the dice on a guy who, with 12 starts under his belt, is averaging over 275 passing yards per game. He's shown that he can take Eric Bieniemy's offense, everything that he's put on his plate, and he's executing it. Now, has he had a few rough patches? Yes. But every quarterback who has under 20 starts, I would think for the most part, they're going to have some bad games on their resume.
I do think that
I'm willing to see him work through those bad games in hope that he minimizes those going forward and those become outliers for him.
I do think these last 6 games are important.
Absolutely.
Especially for the new regime that's going to take a hard look at him. 800-636-1067. Let's go to Kayvon in Upper Marlboro. Kayvon, happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, same to you. Happy Thanksgiving. Good morning, fellas.
Hello.
I think that the commander should be patient with how I know it's 6 games left in the season, and that's going to be a good sample size to see what they're going to do moving next year. But I think they should be patient.
What if Caleb Williams is available to them? I'm looking at the 33rd teams, and the 33rd team has a bunch of like ex-coaches as part of this website, ex-scouts and all that stuff. They have Caleb dropping to 3. And I could see the Commanders moving up to 3 if they finish 4-13. Would you take a swing with him, or you're cool with Howell?
I would take a swing with Caleb because I mean you're talking about arguably a generational talent,
right?
With Caleb Williams, but how do we necessarily know that Caleb Williams is going to be the guy? I mean,
you don't. It's a risk.
It's a risk, but I think that if one of the best offensive linemen is on the board, make it happen.
All right, thank you, Kayvon. A lot of people, I know Drab was telling people that he wasn't going to take any more calls because everybody was calling in saying draft a tackle.
Well, I don't understand this. Why can't you draft a quarterback and just have 2 quarterbacks on the roster and then figure it out during training camp and preseason?
You definitely can.
I mean,
why do you need to have one or the other? Just have 2. Why? You know what I mean? It's the most important position, so why not just go all in and try and figure it out from there?
I think Commanders fans are scared because they had the RG3 Kirk Cousins situation.
I like stockpiling talent, and if you can do it at the most important position on the field, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't understand why it needs to be one or the other. Why you need to have a decision between a rookie and Sam? Just have both.
Yep. Let's do one more. Let's go to Bob in Springfield on line 5. Happy Thanksgiving, Bob. What's going on?
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Listen, for me, football is a lot of things, but it starts with power. You got to have big guys up front who can clear lanes and make holes open up so that you get running backs can get through and your quarterback can have time to throw the ball. All this talk about, get another quarterback, to me sounds like the talk that we used to have about, we're just one guy short, Jason Taylor, Dana Stubblefield, Albert Haynesworth, Bruce Smith, just one more guy and we're on our way to the Super. No, we're not. You build from the line out. That's what Dallas did. That's what Philly did. That's how you win.
I mean, what has Dallas won lately with for years and years, they talked about the great offensive line. I think the knock is, and who knows, Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. People were saying, why hasn't Dallas advanced in the playoffs? They say it's the quarterback. We'll see. Dak will have a chance to prove it, but they've had a good offensive line. They haven't won anything. They've been a good team with this great offensive line. And yes, the Eagles have a great offensive line, but they also made a move they had Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
And they decided to draft a guy in Jalen Hurts, who they were able to basically steal in the second round.
Yes.
And he's proven to be a stud in the pros.
I'd love to go back and hear some of the EB Carson Wentz versus Jalen Hurts comparisons. Oh, I'd love to revisit those at some point. He thought Carson Wentz was light years beyond Jalen Hurts.
Right, Jalen Hurts can't throw.
Yeah, and look at what's happening now.
You see the dime he threw to Devontae Smith at the end of that game?
Yes, I did see it, JP. I did see that throw. It was a nice one.